people join. Okay, it's 7:45. I think 7:46 already. Okay, so we're going to start. So the Gemara has said that a clay zechuchis, that means something that is made out of glass, and then it was soldered, not soldered, soldered. So Reb Shimon Gamliel said, Reb Shimon Gamliel, there's a machlokes, but Reb Shimon Gamliel said in the name of Reb Meir that it's tamei, and the Chachamim said that it's tahor. So that means like this: the glass was broken, and then it was fixed. So then Reb Meir says that the old tumah came back; it was tamei. So the tumah doesn't go away because it's broken, and the Chachamim say that it does. So the Gemara asks El Mayata. So now, if it's true that what that that the reason that we bichlal have any tumah at all by glass is because of the fact that we make it similar to metal. So there's no the glass. The Torah doesn't mention glass at all. The Torah mentions certain metals. So from those metals, we say, well, glass is similar. Why is it similar? Because just like a metal can be soldered, if it's broken, you solder it back together again. So the same thing is with glass. So lolitamu, if that's the case, then the glass should not be able to become tummy through its outer surface. So in other words, really glass on one hand we should treat it like earthenware, because the Gemara said that it comes from sand. That's that glass blowing, right? Comes from sand, and therefore it should be like earthenware. And earthenware does not become tummy through its outer surface, only through the airspace. And then on the other hand, metal does. So which is it? So the Gemara seems to be, this is where the Gemara is kind of like sliding towards this idea according to this opinion. We'll soon see there's a different opinion. But right now the opinion of the Amoraim is that glass is a little bit like metal and a little bit like earthenware, like clay adamo. Clay adamo is one term for earthenware. So anyways, the Gemara says, so alama tanan, so if that's the case, why did we learn the opposite in a Mishnah? What does the Mishnah say? Mishnah says klei cheres uchlei neser. So now klei cheres is earthenware. That's what we call maybe like most mugs. A mug which is put into a kiln, and it comes from some kind of a clay. So that's earthenware. And generally, as we'll soon see, it can never become tahar. Once it becomes tameh, it can never become tahar. So I mean, the good news is that it's not makabel tumah. So for instance, if you buy a mug which is not glazed, so you don't have to tovel it. On the other hand, if it's glazed, our minig is that we do tayvlit because that adds a layer of glass. Glazed means glass. So now the Mishnah says over there, klei cheres uchlei neser. Now, what in the world is neser? Is a very big machlokes. Anias daiti. I happen to go with the Rambam, and that's the way I learned it many years ago. So I'm sticking to it. That it's like chalk. It's really white. And it's very soft. That's what it seems from many sources in Tanakh. But there's other opinions that it's a different type of a thing, and they call it by different names. And we'll get into what these names are. But they're called natron. It's a different material. Anyway, the Rambam holds that it's chalk. I'm going to go with that on many levels. So now, Tumas and Shaveh, so it says over there that these two have the halachas of Tumah are the same for the natron or for the chalk and for the earthenware. Mitamin umitamin me avireim, that they can become tummy. That's with the yud, mitamin. And mitamin means that they can cause tumah to something else. So that means, for instance, that let's say that there's a sheretz that's hanging, like the way that we usually understand this is that it's a spider that's hanging from its web into the kli. So then the spider is tameh, and the spider's tumah spreads to the kli because it's metame from its aver. The spider never really touched the sides, but since a kli cheres is metame from its aver, from its airspace, so these two types of tumas are spread. And on the other hand, let's say that there's a food, let's say that this kli is tameh, and there's a food that's suspended inside the airspace, so it also becomes tameh. So that means mitamin, it receives a tumah, and mitamin means it spreads a tumah. So in other words, that they apparently it would seem that they don't become tameh if the surface is touched. or mitamin me'achareim, and they can also become tameh through their exterior. Now, what does that exterior mean? So Rashi has a long shot. It's a machlokes, but we're going to go with Rashi over here. That this means, like for instance, if you have, I should have had a little bit of show and tell over here, but if you have a kli, I'm looking at one of the break fronts that has a kli that has a stem. So if I'm just going to hold up my hand for a second, if you can see my hand, I would be holding it by the stem, as opposed to by the kli itself. So there's two types of kalim, as we all know. The fancier kosos, a kais. So what do? Some of them you hold the actual. I mean, here's my cup over here. So I'm holding the cup by the bottom. Like for instance, for Kiddush, many people are makbid to hold it not from the side. Now it's not, don't worry about it. Many Gedolim hold it by the side if you don't do this. But if you hold it like for Havdalah, we just made last night, so we hold it from the bottom. And let's say there's a stem, right? So does the stem cause tumah? So the halacha is over here, the Mishnah said, it's mitamin me achireim. Achireim sounds like it means the back, but it doesn't mean the back over here. Rashi learns that it means the stem. Now, just as a little bit of an explanation of this, I'm just going to read from one of the other Rishonim. What does it mean? It's mitamin me achireim. So this means, first of all, Rashi says, "Shem nichnas tumul l'toich achari aklimi b'chutz b'mokom chakak beis meishavim." That's what Rashi says, where there was something that was carved into it. So what does that carved into it mean? So Tosfos, not Rashi, really doesn't exactly say that, but Tosfos explains Rashi, "Shekeshem shem mitamin mibeis kibul zem sham achirayim kach mitamin acher mimokom zeh," that it's another beis kibul. So beis kibul means a handle. Basically, the bottom line, it means a handle. I'm also going to take a drink, Rabbi. Say, sorry. Sometimes the voice is going. Especially now, we're talking about where you hold something, so I'm going to hold something.
Amen.
Thank you for the amen. Okay. Now, Neil, I'm giving you credit for this, because you meant it and you'd like it. There it is. Okay. You have a handle at least over there that explains the Gemara. Now, so then the Mishnah completes over there, or shvirasan mitaros. And I started mentioning this, I think Friday, not even last night. Or shvirasan mitarosam. When we talk about, for instance, ceramic, earthenware, the only way to be mitayar it is to break it. So if you remember, I might as well just say it now for a moment, and I'm going to take it from one of the Mefarshim that I actually was not planning to mention, but I don't want to miss this, because we're in such a matzav here. I think everybody's doing a little bit of tshuva, and everybody's a little bit shaken up by everything that's happening. So on the Yom Neroyim, which we are in kind of like a mini Yom Neroyim now, I think in many ways. So it says that it says in the Slichas, Adam Yisoidai Me'ofar. Right? Remember, I'm sure everybody remembers this, that human beings are made Me'ofar. That means that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu made Adam, he took Adam's offer, the earth, but the sand, really, the dirt from the four corners of the Mauritian, because he was a little bit Litvish, a little bit Hasidish. He came from here, he came from there. So he said he's like Adam. So Adam was made from the four corners of the earth, so he could be buried any place. Adam, you started him off of the Seifel offer. He goes back to earth, after death. Anyway, so I just want to tell a little Maisa. So there's a story with this Rabbi Yaakov Tzvi Parisov. I don't know much about him, but he's brought in the Siach Sarfei Kodesh, which is one of the prime Hasidic sources for Hasidic and Maisis. So he brings a story that right before he was going to go into the sukkah, so he put his hands on his head, and he said, "Oy gewalt, Adam Yisoidei Me'ofar." So that means I'm a kli cheres, and if I'm a kli cheres, so you now let bring a kli cheres into the sukkah. I don't know if you know that. It's halacha. We're holding before Pesach, excuse me, but we're learning a halacha in sukkah that you're not allowed to bring a kli cheres into the sukkah. So because they used to be clunky and not really fancy, and they felt that it was not appropriate to bring it into the sukkah. So he said, "How can I go into the sukkah? I'm a kli cheres." So he said, Oh, but wait a minute. The halacha is shvirasa mitaharasa, that if you're brokenhearted, so that you become tahar. So he walked into the sukkah, knowing that he's broken. A yid after the Yom Noraim in the beginning of Sukkot, so he's broken. So anyway, so all the chassidim based upon this say, and others also, the Bali Musa bring this as well. Like the Gemara says over here that klicheres is shvirasam mitarasam, that the best way to be mitire oneself, to purify oneself, is through being brokenhearted. So we should try a little bit on the tshuva side to be brokenhearted about all the people that are suffering today. David should help. Everybody should have a refuah shalema. Speaking of which, I just want to say that our dear friend Yisachar has another name now, Yisachar Chaim. We should say his name and learn in his. It should be a refuah shalema for him and as a chus for him. Yisachar Chaim ben Esther Malka. So now I'm just going to add also another name of somebody that's in a big sakana is Shlomo Yaakov ben Chayev Fremet. Okay, now Klei Neser. So the Gemara says Klei. So what do you see from this mission? The Gemara says Klei Neser, Klei Cheres, Hu Tumas and Shava. So the only two that are similar are Neser, so which we said is chalk and or natron, and Cheres, which is earthenware, which is ceramic. Avamidiachriniloi. So then the Gemara is asking. So then you see that glassware. That glassware should be mekabel tuma from its outer surface, but before we said that it doesn't. So everything else, glassware, should be mekabel tuma. So where it says Amri, they said in the Bais Medrash of Chazal, chim dechi nishtabru yesh lem takana. That's what I mentioned before. I jumped the gun a little bit because I wanted to say what we hold, like why are we allowed to, and we have to, actually not allowed to, but we have to toivel glass, is because they're very similar to metal, because yesh lem takana. So since they can be melted down and they can be soldered, so therefore, by the way, Rashi says the word over here. If you want to see in the Rashi brings the French. The old French is the word solder. You won't really see it unless you look for it. I'll just tell you where the Rashi is. Where's the lashon in Rashi? So Yeshana, I think a little bit later on Rashi says it. It's not here yet, but I saw the French over here in Rashi to solder. Okay, I'll show you the Rashi in a minute. We're actually not up to it yet. So anyway, so over here it says that shavinu kechli matchis. So the Gemara says that they made it like metal because it's similar to metal. So in this way, it's similar to metal, and then we said before it's similar to earth because it comes from earth. So Gemara says, if that's the case, yachzu l'tumason yushana kechli matachis. So by metal we have halacha that let's say that you broke the metal, as we'll see in a minute. You broke the metal and then you soldered it back together again, so then the old tumah should return, and we don't find that by glass. So the Gemara says, let's take a look for this Mishnah. This now we learned in the Mishnah Kli Matachos Pshuteyan Umekableyan Tameim, that even if it's very, very solid, like what we call flatware. So for instance, just to give you an example, we don't really have too many of these things, but let's say the metal would be used to make a cutting board, where we cut the challah. So, or mekableyan, or that's so pshuteim is the flatware, and the kablein means when it's hollow inside and it has you can pour into it. So they all become tummy. Klematchos or pshuteim or mekableim tameim. They're both mekabel. If they're mekabel something like a liquid or solid, whatever it is, if it has an inside, that's what it means mekableim. So nishbaru taru. If they become broken, they become tar. But chazav asamem kalim. But if you fixed it, then you made it again. Chazlu tumasi yishana. So the old tumah comes back. The Gemara says gabi klei zechuchis tanan. So the Gemara is going to show that metal and ceramic are not identical, because by a glass we find in the Mishnah, it says in the Mishnah kli eitz, wooden kalim, uchlei or, and those that are made out of leather, chli etzem, and bone, like bone china, right? Uchlei zechuchis. So all of them pshuteim taharim. If you have a flat a kind of like a bone china type of thing that you cut on, or a glass cutting board, so then they're tahor or mekableim tameim. But if it's hollow and you can put something into it, so nishbaru taharu. So if you break it, like we said before, shiras and taras, and they become tahor. Chazav asam em kalim. But then if you make a new kli out of it because it was fixed, so here's the halacha: mekablim tumah mikano laba. It can only become tummy from now on, but the old tumah did not return. So the Gemara says mikano laba ein lamafrei aloi. So you see that it's really not like metal. So you see that because the old tumah didn't come back. So you see that it's not like metal. So Gemara answers, Tumas Kli Zechuch is the Rabbanan. So really the emes is that the whole tumah that we have of glass is only Rabbanan, because the Torah doesn't mention glass. The tumah Yeshana, the Rabbanan. And the tumah is also the Rabbanan, because the old fact that the old tumah is returning, that's not a Dairaisa. The old Dairaisa, the old tumah never returns. So Betumah Dairaisa, when we talk about a tumah Dairaisa, so Achisu Bar Rabbanan tumah. So Rabbanan said that the tumah comes back. But Betumah the Rabbanan, when it's a tumah the Rabbanan, Le Achisu Le Rabbanan tumah, the Rabbanan did not make a tumah return. So in other words, again, over here, we cut it down the middle a little bit. We say that it is, glass is like metal, but it's also like ceramic. Now the Gemara goes on a little bit more about what do we do with glass. Pshuteyen mia litame. So if that's the case, so like for instance, a glass cutting board. I don't have one, but I've seen them. A glass cutting board where you use it for Shabbos, for instance, to cut the challah. So it should become tamid up shutikli matachas deiraisa, because matchas, which is metal, is mekabel tuma. So we just said that glass is like metal. Gemara says no. Avdi bar Rabbanan hakera. The Rabbanan wanted to make clear that it's not exactly like metal. Why? Let's say that glass would become tameh, and then a piece of truma, like for instance today we don't have truma, but let's say there would be a truma chali. You'd suddenly start cutting a truma on a cutting board that's glass, and the glass, you find out that it was tameh. So we're going to burn that truma. You're not supposed to, because there's no tumah dairaisa on that truma. So then what would happen? We would be doing a terrible thing. It's usher. The Torah says mishmeres. You're supposed to make a mishmeres for truma and make sure that you're not burning it and you're not making it tameh. So you're not allowed to burn unless it has to be burned. So what did the Chachamim do? They made a hecker. Now we do this in many places. I just want to give you one example because we're technically, although we forgot about Purim already in the middle of all this, but between Purim and Pesach, so let's go back a little bit to the Megillah. A Megillah, the Chachamim decided to make a laning, right? And in fact, Esther, when she came to the Chachamim, she said, Kisvuni l'dairis, please make me a Megillah. Okay, so they made a Megillah. So why did they make it look like a Sefer Torah? It looks a little bit like a Sefer Torah, but not completely. That's this Gemara. There's a hecker. First of all, there's no Hashem's name. Second of all, it's not Chumash. And even our, if you take a look at our Nevi'im, we learn Baruch Hashem in the Shul Nevi'im from the Haftarah, so we have a klaf. So the klaf is not exactly like a Sefer Torah, because it's only the Rabbanon. So these are the hekerim, the Savri of Dibo Rabbanon Hekera. The Rabbanon made a heker that we should just be respectful of the Dairaisa. There's a Dairaisa and there's a Rabbanon. Now, the mashal that I gave is not really perfect, because the hecker by over here, by the difference between glass and metal, is so that we were afraid that if we make the glass just like the metal, something terrible will go wrong. Because what's going to happen? We're gonna burn truma, and we weren't supposed to burn the truma. That's usher. What would be the worst thing in the world if we would make a sefer of Navi or the Purim Megillah would make it look like a sefer Torah? Probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Maybe we would fast if it fell down. Chas v'shalom. But I mean, that would be the worst thing in the world. But yet, the Chachamim made this hecker between a Deraisa and a Derabanan, and it's a very important rule that the Chachamim made. So I'll just tell you the rule. The rule goes like this. The Rabbanan made ke'en Deraisa. That's the Lashon. That when the Rabbanan made something, they made it like the Deraisa, but not identical, because you still want to keep things different between the Deraisa and the Rabbanan. Okay, now let's go to Amid Bais. Rav Ashi disagrees with all of this. So remember, the Gemara was written by Ravina Rav Ashi. Let me just take a drink. I'm sorry. So Gemara says Rav Ashi denies that the glass is anything like ceramic. And in fact, the halacha is that we only say that um it's I'm sorry, it's did I say it's like metal? It's like metal, but not like cheres at all. Ayu the kakashalach. So, but you ask the kasha on Amid Aleph, lo litame bigabon. If that's the case, they shouldn't get tumah from the outside. So because it's like an earthenware only becomes tumah from the inside. So where it says so the answer is because since by glass it's completely transparent, you can see inside and outside. So then therefore the inside is just like the outside. That's what it means to be toicha kabarai. So the halacha is that just like it becomes tameh from the inside, it becomes tameh from the outside. So it's not like metal in that way. In the Gemara says it is like cheres, but there's one way that we say that it is going to be a little bit like metal is that it's tummy inside and it's tummy from the outside. So I just want to go back to something I mentioned yesterday or last night. I'm sure that the time is running together every day, but last week I think it was more. That at the Seder, many people have. Don't worry if you don't use glass. Some people use glass, some people don't use glass. But if you use glass, then the reason, according to some, is because of this. Why do we like glass? Because Talmid Chacham is supposed to be toichai kabare. He's not supposed to be chas v'shalom, a hypocrite. Like on the outside he seems very, very frum. Let's say on the outside he seems very frum. Everything he does very frum. And then on the inside, he's a hypocrite. He's not really religious. So that's a mila. That's a very nice thing. It's an advantage that a person is toichai kabare like glass. Glass is fully transparent. Today they use the term also that they run their company transparently. What does that mean? That they're honest. So that's the mile of glass. Okay, let's go further. So now we're going to have the story of when this happened actually, and it was a problem that they fixed metal, and they didn't realize that the tumah comes back. So what happened over here? Shimon ben Shetach. Now, who was? I always say Reb Shimon ben Shetach because in some Gemaras they call him Rabbi Shimon ben Shetach, but over here they just say Shimon ben Shetach. So Tikein Ksuba Leisha. So we learned earlier that one of the takanas was of the 18 was that Shimon ben Shetach was misaken. He started a ksuba for a woman, and I was like, where do we get our ksubas from Reb Shimon ben Shetach? The Gazatuma Klimatochis. And he said that you have to consider if a metal thing becomes tamei, you have to be matar, you have to put it through a mikvah. So Gemara asked, what do you mean? Reb Shimon ben Shetach did that, and that was on the list of the 18 that we learned a couple of days ago. So Gemara asked, Klimatchis de'raisina, you don't need Shimon ben Shetach to tell us that metal can become tamei. The Chsiv, it says in the pasuk that in the war with Midjan, it says Aches Azov Kesef. So there's a list of 7 different types of metals over there, and all the metals become tamei. So that's a deraisa. It's a pasuk. You don't need Shimon ben Shetach to tell us that. So our answer is like Nitzchah. No, what was his chiddush? What did we need him for? We didn't need him to tell us that metal becomes tamei. Glass, for that we can say that somebody came along and said such a chiddush. El Latuma Yeshana. What did we say? That Reb Shimon ben Shetach said that the old tumah returns. So now, when did this happen? What was the situation? And I'll stand in the Gemara, if you don't mind, from the Kuzari over here. Damar Rav Yehudah Amar Rav, Rav Yehudah said in the name of Rav, Ma'aseh b'shel Tzion Amalka. Now this Sheltzion Amalko, she was a good lady, but she made a mistake. So who was she? She was actually Reb Shimon ben Shetach's sister. Rashi brings this. She was making a chasna. It's interesting, by the way, in the time of Chazal, whenever it says the word mishte, I think without exception, but I might be wrong, but 99% of the time, it means a chasna. So she was making a chasna for her son, and all the utensils became tamei. So Vishibarta and Shvarasa, there's 2 different ways of saying it. So she broke all of them. She was a very smart lady. So she gave them to a blacksmith, a guy that knows how to do these things, and he soldered them. So v'osamen kelim chadoshim. So they became new. So she thought that they're not that although they were tamei, but now it's a new kli, and the tumah went away. V'amru chachamim, and the chachamim said, "Yachzu l'tumas on Yeshana." Now you have to say she was a very powerful lady. Her husband was Yanai Hamelech. Now, Yanai Hamelech, I've mentioned this before, the Rav, Reb Soloveitchik Zatzal, always used to say about Yanai Hamelech, he was a pathological liar, and he was a pathological killer. That's the way he said it. You know, he was a murderer, and he murdered, according to one opinion, all of the Chachamim. Now, that was around the time that this happened. How do we know this? The Kuzari tells us that Rabbi Yehudah Levi, almost 1,000 years ago, tells us he was one of the earliest Rishonim. He was the father-in-law of the Ibn Ezra. So he tells the Maisa like this, that how did the Karoyim get started? The Karoyim were this whole sect, and they were, at this time, they got started, and they went all the way through the time of the Gaonim and the Rishonim, who for instance, the Rambam and the Ramban were still fighting the Karoyim hundreds of years later. How did they get started? So he says he gets started at this, apparently around this time of this story, that Yanai Hamelech was the king and he was the Kohen Gadol. So somebody, it sounds like it wasn't the smartest guy in the world, said to him, you know, enough with being the Kohen Gadol, you should only be the king. And what did he mean? He was implying that Yanai Hamelech's mother had been captured and that she had been violated by a guy, and a woman that was violated by a guy who her husband's a Kohen, she gives birth, and the child is a cholol. So cholol can't even be a regular Kohen, certainly can't be the Kohen Gadol. So the king got all angry, and he spoke to some of his advisors, and they said one of two versions, either to wipe out all the Chachamim or to at least exile them. So meanwhile, whatever it is, there was a period of time where there were no Chachamim in Klal Yisrael. Even Reb Shimon ben Shetach, now we come to Shimon ben Shetach, who was her brother, the queen's brother, he went into hiding. So there was nobody to ask Shilas. And even this pathological killer, as we said, Yanai Hamelech said, how am I going to learn Torah? I need a Rebbe. So finally, his wife, after a number of years of the Karayim being in charge, because the Karayim saw a gap, a kind of like a vacuum, and they took over. And what happened was they inserted many wrong minhagim, wrong halachas into Klal Yisrael, because of course they didn't believe, and they still don't believe. There's supposedly some Karayim left in Eretz Yisrael that they don't believe in Torah she'bal peh. So many halachas were wrong. So over here, she was, although she was a good lady, this Shel Tzion. And I think there's another one they call her Salome, I think. But in any case, so this was Shel Tzion. So she didn't know the halachas very well. And the Chachamim, it's interesting, she was making a chasana. So she thought that, we're not going to have any kalim. So if you'd go the usual route, you have to wait a week. So she said, I don't want to wait a week. So she thought, she once heard from, I think personally, one of the Karoim, but I might be wrong, she heard from one of the rabbis who were not really rabbis, that you can just break it, solder it, and then the tumah went away. So they told her, no, the tumah comes back. This is my time. Why did they make this gzeira? Listen to this gzeira. Even though they thought that the queen could get angry. And the queen, apparently, Yana, it seems like had died already, and she was making the chasna herself. So the Gemara says, Mishum Geder Mechatos Naguba, because Mechatos takes a week. You have to sprinkle the water of the Paraduma on a person that became Tamei Tumas Meis twice during the week. So then she wouldn't have any kalim for a week. She figured this way, it works on the same day. So why did they make this gzeira? Because they were afraid that then everybody would just ditch the Mechatos. You wouldn't have to use the Paraduma water anymore, and it would just be totally forgotten. Rashi uses the term, if you look in Rashi, you'll see, Kedei Shaloi Tishtakach Teiras Mechatas. Rashi says that people are going to forget about the Paraduma because they have a better Eitzah. They're going to think. So the Chachamim didn't want this to happen. So my Rebbe always used to say that we find this halacha by lulav and esrog as well. The halacha is that, let's say an entire city doesn't have a kosher lulav, so the halacha is that you shuckle, it's a machlokas if you make a bracha, but you shuckle the pasul lulav that year because you're afraid that it's going to be forgotten. Like right now, we're not in shul, and you know, if we were like the chacham in the old days, we would also be able to make takanas. Maybe we'd make a takana. A guy could say yiskadal, or at least say baruch hu, all by ourselves, because we're afraid. We hope a mitzvah will be back in the shul soon. But they always made takanas that certain things should not be forgotten. So over here, the chacham made a takana, and this went against Shal Tzion, because Shel Tzion wanted to have it in one day, and they said, "Sorry, lady, Your Highness, you can't have it." She was, by the way, I forgot to mention this. I think from the last of the Chashmonaim kings and queens. Her husband was the king, and she was the queen. But she did listen to the Chachamim because she had a good brother, Shimon ben Shetach. So anyway, so now the Gemara says. Let's go back to Gemara. So this is only good according to the one that says that they didn't say this for all the tumas, elul tumas ameis mulvad, that for tumas mace. So shapir, so then it would be okay. So we understand. So if they said it's for all the tumas, so Michael and Aimer, so what is there to say? So the Gemara says, Abaya said, that they were afraid that because the tumah really comes back, that they were afraid that maybe, okay, good. It's not such a bad thing that you can do it in one day. But so what would be the wrong? That they wouldn't make a hole. For instance, what did she do? She pierced it. She made a hole. But how big does the hole have to be? The hole has to be, Rashi says, as big as a pomegranate, as a rimon. Rashi, look at Rashi. So a rimon is pretty big. So let's say a person would want to break it so that they could get rid of the tumah, but they're not going to make such a big hole. So that's why they made the gzera. So Rav Amagzer Shem Yomru, he says a different gzera. Tvila bas yoyma oilula. They would say that tvila, because some people would see that there was a kli that was tamei, and then the same day they used it again. So they're gonna say, "Oh, look at that! The tefillah helps in the middle of the day." It's not true, because even once you take the kli to the mikvah. Like today, we take a kli to the mikvah. We don't have to wait till sundown. But in time of Chazal, they had to wait till Shkia. What's the difference between these two shitas? Was the gzera because of breaking, they wouldn't be broken properly, or the gzera was because that they completely flattened the kli. They flattened the kli. What does that mean? That now that it's a kli that is what we call pshute kli eitz, or now it was a pshute kli matchas, it was flat. So then Itaka doesn't have the same tumah. Now the Gemara goes on. We're going to go on now to the other of the 18. So now the Gemara says like this. This now we learn. What was the next one of the 18? If somebody put kalim under a pipe, now we're going to talk about ma'im she'uvim. Lekabel bohen megashamim. And you want to get rainwater in them. This is the way we mamish make a mikveh today. So echad kelim gedolim, echad kelim ketanim. If it went into a kli, and the kli is either large or small, even a very small kli. I feel kli avonim. Even if it was stoneware, kli adama, or what they sometimes call mudware, but kli adama I call is ceramic or anything that comes from the earth. Or kli galalim was dungware, something made from dung. We would never eat out of these things, but they used to take dung, which is animal excrement, and they sprayed it with some kind of a thing, and then they dried it. So paislis mikvah. So any water that was in any of these kalim, so it passes the mikvah. Now we said yesterday, I'm just going to mention this again, that this is only where the mikvah was not complete. It didn't have mem saw. So let's say it had 39 saw, or in our terminology, 199, but not 200 gallons. And then you poured in some water, very, very, very small amount of water, we said yesterday. And that's ma'im she'uvim. It's water that was sitting in a kli. It passes the mikveh. But once the mikveh has mem saw 200 gallons, you can't pass it with any kind of water. Now, so this is true if you put it on purpose under the pipe. Or you forgot you put them there. So that's what Beis Shammai holds. Beis Hillel holds that if you forgot, you didn't put the water into the kli on purpose, it doesn't ruin the water. Amar Reb Meir said, how do we pass? They counted up, and for a change, we had another case of this earlier, if you remember. Beis Shammai had more people than Beis Hillel. Now, the emphasis, the reason we pass like Beis Hillel, the Gemara says in many places, is because Beis Hillel was smarter, even though they were less. So the emphasis, Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai was smarter, and we don't pass like Beis Shammai because they were not the Rav, and we go bust the Rav. Now, the Gemara says like this. When Beis Shammai agreed to this? Let's say he forgot that they were in an open yard. The mikveh is tahor. So Rabbi Yossi said, this machlokes still continues. Now, what does that mean? that the machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, they never resolved it. And so he holds that this machlokes you have to put into the 18 because they're still arguing. Rav Omri, he said that in Yeshiva of Rav, they said, Hakol Moedim, everybody agrees, let's say that a person put these kalim under the pipe when it looked like it was going to rain. So then they're Tameim, because it's not good for mikvah, because he was planning to use this water for the mikvah, and he put it into a kli on purpose, because he knew that it's going to rain. He saw that the clouds were dark and it was going to rain. But b'shas pizur of him. But if on the other hand he put them under the pipe when the clouds were all over the place, they're nice white, beautiful clouds, and it didn't look like it was going to rain, divrei kol taharim, because he didn't have in mind that this water should be used for the mikvah. When is there machlokes? Ella shenicham b'shas kisher oven. He left the water there. The pipe was dripping into the kli, and the clouds over there were what? They looked like it was gonna rain. But then the clouds went away. V'chazvan is kashu, and then they came back. So that's where the machlokes is. Mar Sover Beis Hillel holds batla machshavtoi, because even though his machshava was that he was going to use this, but then the clouds went away. It looked like there was going to be no rain, so he didn't care about the kalim. Beis Shammai holds that the original intention did not go away. So it's very interesting. I think I mentioned this many times, Rabbi. I hope maybe somebody remembers that the machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel throughout Shas follows the following rule. Beis Shammai goes according to the potential, and Beis Hillel goes according to the actuality. So this is a very good example of this. Beis Hillel holds that, well, you take a look at it right now, his machshava is not on these kalim. And Beis Shammai holds, well, the potential is there because his machshava was on the kalim, and then the machshava went away. Now, the Gemara said, Rabbi Yosi, but according to Rabbi Yosi, so he says, Rabbi Yosi holds that the machlokes is still there. So Batri Lahu, so now, because we said that the 18 things are where everybody agrees. And they made this takana of 18 things, and Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel agreed. So, but if the machlokes is still around, they don't all agree. So then we have to find one more thing that they were arguing about, that they did not argue about. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said, "Af b'nois kusim nidos me'aray sason." So this is the one thing that they also made exer on, that the non-Jewish girls, that they are considered to be a nida from the time that they're born, and by b'yom gazu, they decreed that they made that exer on that same day. So I think we're going to stop over here by Ve'idach Mahi, because that starts a whole different discussion, which runs us through most of Daf Tazayin. So we have a couple of minutes. So first of all, I just want to learn something, and then I have a question about scheduling for you.
Rabbi, the quick question on the glass keli that doesn't need to be titled.
Yeah, sure.
What percentage of it has to be glass? The majority.
What percentage?
Yeah, like let's say you have a.
Now, first of all, we do
metal half glass.
Let me just clarify. We do toivel glass. We don't toivel ceramic.
I'm saying as far as makabel toma. I'm sorry.
So you mean that it can't be makabel toma? You mean that glass?
Yeah.
But l'maisa today we say the glass taka can't be makabel toma. You're right. But a new kli that we never ever toiveled has to be toiveled. So there's no question. It's not negayos because we don't have toma. All we have is a new kli. You buy a new glass kli. You have to toivel it, no matter how much glass there is in it. Let's say most of it is plastic and a little bit of it is glass. You still have to toivel it. Okay. All right. So now, what I want to just go over from the daf is a number of very, very, really along the lines of what Yitzi was just asking about, for instance, aluminum. So aluminum that we buy from a guy. So the Tshuvas Van Hogus, Rav Sternbach, I started on him last week. This Tshuva, it's in the first Chelik Siman Tafnun Aleph. So he says that Mateches, sorry, I'm not sneezing on anybody, so it's okay.
Gesundheit.
Thank you. So the Tshuvas Van Hogus says that he proves from our sugya that Iker Gedram Shokli Mateches Hu Shekishenishbu Yeshlam Takana. That what is metal? Metal means that it can be fixed. So based upon this, he says that this kli called aluminum, that was only discovered recently. He says, you have to toivel it. So he says, what about all the new metals? So that's a machlokes. So he brings that the Chazon Ish says that it's potter from tefillah. So what doesn't need and this is the all of us. It's coming up that anybody's going to go toiveling and so forth. Baruch Hashem, the mikvahs for the kelim mikvahs are still open. We're hoping they're going to stay open. So kli plastic, the nylon, they were not Chazal were not guys on them. V'af b'sheyesham takana mishnishtabru, they can be fixed. So why don't we make on them the same takana that we made for glass? So he says. Ein lanu lahaisif midatenu kelim chadoshim. So he says a big chiddush that even though Chazal added glass, and in their days glass was a new thing, but they made it like metal a little bit, and we learned today they made it a little bit like ceramic. But today we don't make new gzeres. So then he says a little bit later on that it all depends which kind of aluminum, and there are places where he says yesh b'kam shemishtamshim bedoron in the south. Betaruvas barzel, bedil, aluminum. There's a mixture. That's what you were talking about, Yitzi, where there's different parts. So he says if something is aluminum, which is not a metal that we have to toivel, and that's really the minig is today that you don't toivel, especially disposable aluminum. But many places today make a chiluk between disposable. If you have a disposable like these pans that are disposable, you don't have to toivel them, and hard aluminum. Hard aluminum you do have to toivel. He doesn't say this. Now, what about hagala can you or should you do hagala on glass? So the Shulchan Aruch writes in Arachaim in Hilchos Pesach, Siman Tafan and Aleph. So he says that the emissaries, the Mechaber says that glass is not absorbent at all. So that's what Sfardim do, by the way. I don't remember if there's any Sfardim that are listening or watching, but maybe later they will. So I want to say for the Sfardim, the Mechaber says that you don't ever have to kasher aluminum. I'm sorry, the kasher glass, because glass is not mekabel at all tumah. So he says even if it was owned by a guy, but the Ramah brings the smag shemachmir v'sevish. They hold that glass is absorbent. So we are mostly of your Ashkenazim. Ashkenazim do toivel glass, and he has a whole discussion about this, but that I'm not going to go into. And then he brings a shiur mitzuyim b'halacha, but happened to be one of my favorite svarim. He writes, "Shegam leminag Ramah, even according to Ramah, ef shalahagil klei dolarex or pyrex. Pyrex, dolarex we don't have so much, but pyrex chim sheyeshom shatam shein ma'elas hagola b'chlitzchus mishum shechoshu shem yochus aleim. Why don't we do hagola because we're afraid it's going to break? So he says he's not worried about it. He says the name of the Ritva. And Rabbi Yaakov Emden Lachen Kli Pyrex Shemavashim B'Mamish Olaesh Echashash. So he says like this. Let's say you have a very fragile type of a crystal. So the crystal, because we're afraid you're not water very hot, you're not going to leave it there long enough. But Pyrex, which you put, we cook with it, so we're not afraid that it's going to break. We use it with heat. So Memela, you could do Hagala on a Kli Pyrex. That's the Psak Halacha. Okay, we're going to stop over here. I just want to ask a question. Somebody suggested that they don't want to get up so early in the morning. So I had originally said we should learn during the week and on Sunday the same times that we always learn, so that we'll, like we just said, that we should keep the minig. Now I know some people may be running off to go to someplace. I know I'm still under quarantine, so I can't go anywhere. So I don't mind. Whatever the other wants to do. Any feelings on this?
Aren't we supposed to be continued davening at the same times?
Yes, which would mean that we should learn at the same time. I agree with you.
Daven at 8. When would we do the daven?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you could daven earlier. You know.
And for me,
Daven-
I'm working from home, Rob, so I have to be at my desk at 8:30. So it's a good time for me.
Oh, it is. So Sunday's a good time. And during the week, everybody also would still
No, I'm saying
daven
that
learn it.
during the week I was talking about. Sunday I don't hold for whatever the Rob wants to do, but during the week 7:15 is a good time for me.
7:15. So is 7:15 still good, Rabbi? Say you want to stick to it?
I'm fine with anything.
I'm
I
up
gotta
anyway.
go to work.
Anyway.
Sounds good to me.
We're gonna meet in Kesidram, right? We're gonna continue
Yes.
the same way. Very good. Okay. Everybody should have a good day.
I just
and we
might
should-
not be wearing my button-down shirt by then, so please forgive.
Yetzi, as long as you're wearing a shirt, I'll be satisfied with that. Okay.
I like the
Second
Rav Tishbekasha. I never got to see it till last night after all these years.
No. That's what can I do?
Did the Rob
That's
say
no.
anything to
I now wear on Shabbos, Motzi Shabbos. The Hasidim have some Hasidic blood. Got to
I
keep it on
see. Baruch
all night.
Hashem. I didn't know the Rav was so Hasidish. Baruch Hashem.
Yeah. We
Next will
are.
come the Shtreimel.
Yeah. My father Roshon was a Radomska Chussid. But
Right.
I'm like my Rebbe. My Rebbe, remember I told you, my Rebbe, I don't know if everybody's on at the beginning. We learned today about that a person comes from Ofar. So my Rebbe used to say that he's like Adam Orishan. Adam Orishan, the Gemara says, Kadosh Baruch Hu made him from all the four corners of the earth so that, after 120 could be buried any place. The earth would receive him. El Ofar Ata El Ofar Tashuv. So my Rebbe said he was born in Varsha, in Warsaw, and then he became a Litvak, he learned in Slobodka, and then America. Don't say he's from the four corners of the earth. I think we're all from the four corners of the earth.
Yeah, pretty much.
Very
One
good.
big chunk.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Good
Thank
day.
you, Rabbi.
Shir
Yeah.
b'suras
Rabbi Feitman.
Amen.
You're welcome.
Shkaya.
Shir b'suras
you.
taivos.
Thank you
Refuas
very much.
v'yeshuas.
Amen.
Kol tov, refuas v'yeshuas.
Amen.